When I was little, there was a door to the attic in the room I slept in. And at night, out of this door would come the shadow people. Now, there are two distinct types of shadow people. The first type would come right up to the bed, and they moved in a very weird way. Like, looking back on it now, it's almost like one of those things, like if you ever saw Bringing Out the Dead, a scene that was filmed in reverse and then they played it forward. So it creates this very, very strange, stilted type of movement where you can't really put your finger on what's wrong, but something is wrong. And the first type of shadow people, they were real uncomfortable because they would come right up and hover over the bed and get like right close to my face. And they didn't have eyelids, or their eyelids had been cut off. Their they didn't blink and their eyes were completely exposed and looked dry. Very, very uncomfortable. And all over them, like the exposed skin, there was symbols or something carved into the flesh, like someone had taken like a sharp spoon and just carved it and popped it right out. And none of it was bleeding, but it was all fresh. I mean, I as far back as I care to remember, these things would come. I obviously I don't even like talking about it to this day because I feel talking about it will put it in my head. That's the nicer way of saying it. The more frightening way of saying it, which I tend not to believe, but talking about them gets their attention. No, I prefer not to think of it that way. I'm sure if I put effort into tricking myself, I could come to believe that. But I think I'm just putting it in my head, and then I am more likely to see something, like while I'm sleeping. So these are very freaky things. And in fact, there's a movie that did very poorly called Haunting in Connecticut. And at one point in that movie, like right at the end, there's these corpses falling out of the walls, and they all had shit cut into their face. Like I remember seeing it, I was like, oh shit, those look exactly like the shadow people. So I wonder if that's a thing that some kids see, especially kids that have like a history of like severe trauma and stuff like that. But like stuff carved into them, the no eyelids, like the eyes were like white almost. It's difficult to explain, and they moved in like a herky jerky way. It's really weird. The second type of shadow people, right? They would come to a doorway, and there's always two, and they're longer. These have no real form. Well, they have a form. They have no distinction. No, they're only shadow. And this is obviously where the name shadow people comes from, because these are actual shadow. The other ones, they have form, but they are affiliated with the shadow people somehow. I can't say, but I always just call them both shadow people. So fucking crazy. But nevertheless, the other ones will stand in the doorway and watch. And I don't know. Obviously, it would seem that they are watching me, but I don't know what they are watching. Obviously, I don't think they are real. It would be very uncomfortable if I started to believe these things were real as well. I just usually attribute it to the imagination of an unwell mind. But nevertheless, I saw something, a video that reminded me of this. and it's raining and cloudy out, and it's kind of a spooky day. So I figured, why not talk about this? Because what reminded me of it is one time I was on the beach, and my dad, he, like a camper RV lived in a trailer park, all that. So one summer he was up here, and we were over at, he was staying at a beach with my stepmom, and me and my brother were over there hanging out, and we slept there. And at night there was a guy in like a long coat, like a duster, and he's like standing over where I'm sleeping, because I'm sleeping on the floor of this camper. And he's standing over me, and he's like menacing, but I can't move. And there's a name for this, like sleeping and can't move but seeing something. Anyway, uh I remember the wind because all the windows were open, and the door was open, but the screen door was closed to get to create a breeze. And I remember his clothes were moving, and I found that very alarming because in my mind, if it was a dream, then his clothes shouldn't be moving. Very, very uncomfortable. And he gets right to the, like, basically where, like, we're creating an L, like his feet are almost touching my feet. And it is very, very menacing. And I can hear the radio going, like I'm at least half conscious, half awake. But I think this was all a dream. But I don't know if it was a dream. There could have been a guy. It is very difficult for a person to sneak up on me. I have very good hearing. I have a very good sense of smell. In fact, I really have almost like a superhuman sense of smell and hearing, um, where it surprises me other people can't detect the same things I can. Like if I'm downwind of someone, I can smell them coming 2 blocks away. And to me, it's like it's screaming out loud that this there's this smell in the air. Obviously, the person is 2 blocks away. I know what they smell like. But most people don't even know what they're like. I know this sounds fucked up. Most people don't know what their friends smell like. And to me, everyone has a unique smell. And it's so loud. It's like their face. Like it's undeniable. But most people don't even notice that other. I mean, unless there's something very, like they're wearing some kind of cologne or lotion or something like that. But to me, like it's people always smell like their house, and it's very clear. So it's very difficult to sneak up on me. It can be done, especially if I'm smoking pot and not paying attention, uh, and feel somewhat at ease. But in a normal state, it's going to be difficult to sneak up on me. Which I also wonder, do other people hear through vibration in the ground? Because this is a thing I've done my whole life. I hear through vibrations in the ground. And like I can hear where people are through these vibrations in the ground. And like it's one of the reasons I don't like air conditioners, because they shake the room slightly and it completely throws off my ability to do this. And it's like one of my main senses is to I tell where people are. Like I live on the third floor of this house, and I can tell you where everyone in this house is based upon. Now I've never been in their apartments, but I can just tell you what rooms they're in because I can feel where they walk through the floor. I wonder if other people do that. But anyway, Anyway, the beach and the cowboy shadow figure. The weird thing about this was that morning, it was already past midnight. So that morning would have been September 11th, 2001. And I always wondered if that was like a real person that had just been drunk and come home to the wrong place. And like I couldn't make out who they were because it seemed very real. But dreams have a way of doing that, where you can hear what's going on around you. Now, as for the shadow people, that's something else. I don't know if that's a manifestation of trauma. That's generally what I believe it is. Um, because the alternative is terrifying. If that stuff is real, uh, I prefer not even to think about that. But even by talking about it, there will be something with this. Um, and another thing that they can do is they can take up a place in a corner of the ceiling, almost like a spider. It weird shit, weird shit. But I think it's kind of funny and kind of interesting, and none of it's very shocking revelations. But it is weird that I've mentioned this before. Every girl I've ever been close to has told me that there is a demon attached to me. And I mean, none of these girls know each other. Some of the time, it is a great dark presence. Now, I've always just taken this as another manifestation of trauma, and the fact that I'm a very nice and sweet person most of the time, but there is a very dark and aggressive side to me that, if pressed far enough, will manifest. But that's what I always took it as. But they always took it as more, um, much more. In fact, like they took it serious, and I never did. And they always wanted me to, and I would take it serious as far as like they were concerned. But I don't detect any of that stuff. If there is anything to it, it does not connect with me. I am uh, unable to perceive anything like that. But, you know, I also probably wouldn't want to. Most of all, because what does it say about me? Like, I've been seeing stuff since I was a little kid, but just like The Shining, it's like pictures in a book. None of it's real. It's just manifestations of trauma and other messed up stuff that my head will pick up on, uh, or put in places. Like in the woods, I've commonly wondered if people see things, right? Because there's like leaves, and the leaves for a brief second can take on like the shape of something, like a gorilla, for instance. And your brain will fill that in and see something as if it's there. But like the leaves, just by moving, can take on various shapes that if your brain perceives, especially with light coming through it, which would create like delineation, it would just place something there because that's like the rough shape it sees, and it recognizes that as whatever it is and just places it there, because a lot of our like sight isn't stuff we're actually seeing. It's just our brain filling in the expected information. So I've always wondered if like out in the woods people see a lot of stuff because various things take on shapes and their brain just fills something in. But obviously I am very self-interested in not believing in anything supernatural or of that nature. I will acknowledge that humans know very little about the world around us, and as far as the world around us, the universe, humans have a very poor conception of what goes on. And they like to take the tone that they know everything, and they don't. There is large gaps in our information. Humans are very good at things that are of humans, and humans are not very knowledgeable on things that are above humans, like weather, for instance. The cycle weather seems to move in are so large and exist over such lengthy time periods. Like, if a weather cycle takes 1,000 years to complete, it is imperceptible to the human eye, at least as it is now and with the records we have. There's no way to detect a cycle that goes on for 1,000 years because we just don't have the records. And there is other things that can be done, but those are all not very exact. Anyway, I'm losing my point. It's just to say there are limitations to human knowledge, and I don't rule out possibilities, and I don't like to tell people supernatural things don't exist. Um, and like I said, I am obviously very self-interested in my denial of it, because if things like shadow people were real, that's an uncomfortable world to live in, even if it's just some, you know, whatever. Uh, I can still vividly remember nights with these things and how terrifying it was. But fear was obviously a big part of my life in the day, too. I was terrified of everyone. So it makes sense, that that would also manifest itself in sleep. Anyway, this has gone on long enough. But the thing about having no eyelids and the stuff cut into their face, uh, it's strange for a child to come up with something like that, like a 5 or 6 year old, like no eyelids or eyelids cut off and weird symbols cut into the face, you know. But anyway, this was just a real random thing. It's not even particularly well done, but maybe it will be interesting. I don't know. Take it for what it's worth, I guess.